Quran 8, verse 18. This, and surely Allah weakens the deceitful plots of unbelieving infidels.
In order to justify this excrement, Mohammed and Allah had to stupefy their militants first. Good must be made to appear bad, and bad must become good. The
unbelieving infidels
were at Badr to defend their people and protect their property from the bad Muslims, yet this good motive is twisted into a
deceitful plot.
It's but another Quranic lie.
Quran 8, verse 19. Quraysh unbelievers, you asked for a judgment, so the judgment came to you. If you desist, it will be best for you. If you return to the attack, so shall we. And your forces, no matter how large, will fail. For verily Allah is with those who believe Him.
Unable to deliver the threatened day of doom, Allah is suggesting that this sandlot skirmish is its equivalent. It is also interesting that the Spirit's judgment renders booty to criminals. Further, the defensive tactics of the merchants were wrongly twisted into looking like an attack by the delusional spirit. Yet the Meccans were merely safeguarding their wares. The Muslims were on the prowl, trying to steal them. This convoluted reasoning is the same strategy modern Muslims foist on an ignorant media. Thus, when the Israelis defend themselves from Islamic terror, they are recast as the aggressors. With situational scriptures issued and history twisted, it was time to reinforce the purpose of Islam.
Quran 8, verse 20. O you who believe, obey Allah and His Messenger. Do not turn away from Him when you hear Him speak. Do not be like those who say, we hear, but do not listen. Those who do not obey are the worst of beasts, the vilest of animals in the sight of Allah. They are deaf and dumb. Those who do not understand are senseless. If Allah had seen any good in them, He would have made them listen. And if He had made them listen, they would but have turned away and declined submission.
When you consider the audience and the circumstances, this is transparent. Mohammed was lashing out at the good people of Medina, calling them bad Muslims for not following his orders to fight. The bad Muslims still knew right from wrong. Their consciences told them that piracy, terrorism, murder, kidnapping, ransom, and thievery were evil. As such, they were good people. When the Prophet spoke to them, commanding them to become pirates, they turned away and did not listen to him. The good Muslims, however, like their counterparts today, had been corrupted by Islam. They could no longer distinguish between right and wrong, so they zealously followed their profiteer on raids to pillage and plunder. While it is obvious that this demented doctrine needs to be exposed and exterminated, sentenced to die for its crimes, bad Muslims should be leading the parade. Their faux deity just called them the vilest of creatures. Yes, any Muslim who does not follow Muhammad's orders to murder infidels, to pillage and plunder them, is deaf and dumb, senseless, the worst of beasts. Allah hates above all else peace-loving Muslims, even more than He hates Jews. I beg any Muslim listening to these words to let them sink in. Your God condemns you if you do not lash out in jihad, if you do not fight to the death for this demented cause. If the Quran is true, if Allah is God, if Muhammad was a prophet, and you are a peaceful, loving Muslim, you are destined for a hell even more torturous than that prepared for the hospitality of the infidels. It's a lose-lose game with your soul at stake. If Islam is true, you're toast. If Islam is a lie, you live in the poverty of a delusional doctrine and will spend your eternity separated from Yahweh, your Creator. It doesn't have to be that way. Before we leave this stunning indictment of Islam, I'd like to address the opening salvo of the 20th verse. Mohammed said that any time he speaks, he must be believed, followed, and obeyed. Not Allah, him. Even Ishaq agrees.
Allah said, "Do not turn away from Muhammad when he is speaking to you. Do not contradict his orders, and do not be a hypocrite, one who pretends to be obedient to him and then disobeys him. Those who do so will receive my vengeance. You must respond to the apostle when he summons you to war."
Technically, one cannot be a bad Muslim. A peaceful, loving person is either a non-Muslim or a hypocrite. Therefore, all true Muslims obey Muhammad's dictates, making them bad people. Muhammad's summons was to raid civilians and steal their property. This wasn't holy war, it was terrorism. Also, to follow Muhammad's orders, as Allah is compelling, one must understand the Sunnah and comply with its hadith. That is the only place the Prophet's commands and terrorist example can be found. That is, unless you see Muhammad as Allah, and in that case the Koran is just a redundant Sunnah. Either way, from this point forward, Islam is a terrorist manifesto. Its creed is, obey Muhammad, fight for Muhammad, and pay Muhammad. Since the last Quranic pronouncement was too transparent even for Islam's prophet, the megalomaniac stepped aside momentarily and placed himself back on equal footing with his God.
Quran 8 verse 24. O believers, answer Allah and His Messenger when He calls you to that which will give you life.
Martyrdom.
And know that Allah comes in between a man and his heart. To Him you shall be gathered. Fear the affliction and trial that awaits those who do not obey. Allah is severe.
Yes, all Muslims will meet Allah, the demonic spirit of Islam. Their affliction at His hands will be severe. Ever deceitful, Mohammed and Allah are calling Muslims to fight to the death for their benefit. Yet they say that they are being called to life. This reminds me of Satan's temptation in the garden. The apple represented death, and yet Satan called that choice immortality, life.
Quran 8 verse 26. And remember when you were a small band
of bandits,
and reckoned feeble and despised in the land, and were afraid that men might despoil and kidnap you, carrying you off by force, how He provided a safe asylum for you, strengthened you with His aid. He gave you refuge and gave you the good
stolen
things that, haply, you might be thankful. Oh, that you believe! Don't betray Allah and the Messenger, nor misappropriate things entrusted to you.
Gloating is unseemly. Mohammed's militants had won a skirmish against some poorly equipped and out-of-shape businessmen. The Muslims were but a small band of bandits, feeble and despised before Badr. They remained so after the battle. No Muslim was carried off by force. They were the kidnappers. As for an asylum, I'd be happy to recommend one.
Quran 8 verse 28. And know that your property and your children are just a temptation, and that Allah has the best rewards.
The idea that
children are just a temptation
is telling. Is Mohammed suggesting that men might be tempted to abuse their sons as he himself was abused as a child? Or is he asking parents to sacrifice their children and their money on jihad's altar, as so many Muslims do today? While perverse, neither is as twisted as the notions of God's best reward is an inebriated stay in His whorehouse. Nor are they any more evil than an Islamic imam seducing mercenary militants to murder innocents to gain entry.
Quran 8 verse 29. O you who believe, if you obey and fear Allah, He will grant you a criterion to judge between right and wrong, or a way to overlook your evil thoughts and deeds.
If you are a good Muslim and obey out of fear, Allah will grant you a new
criterion to judge between right and wrong.
And that's because all other religions, moral codes, and societal mores define piracy, murder, plunder, terrorism, kidnapping, thievery, and ransom as evil. But not to worry, O Islamic terrorist, because Allah will forgive you of your crimes, corrode your mind, and rid you of the pangs of conscience.
Quran 8, verse 30. Remember how the unbelievers,
Meccan merchants,
plotted against you, O Muhammad, to keep you in bonds, or slay you, or get you out of your home. They plotted, and Allah, too, had arranged a plot. But Allah is the best schemer.